Welcome to episode 268 of the Shared Security Show. And joining me this week is me, myself, and I. That's right, folks. I'm solo this week because both Kevin and Scott decided that it was a great week to travel and not actually join me for the podcast this week. So this is one of those, I'll just say, rare solo episodes. But that's okay because I still have some great stories for you all this week. And I will, of course, give you my thoughts and opinions of these stories. They just won't be as controversial as Kevin's. But let's get into it. So, the White House has released its new National Cybersecurity Strategy, which aims to provide an outline or framework of what the current administration wants the federal government, critical infrastructure organizations, and private companies to do so they can work together in harmony to provide and improve national cybersecurity. So, the key takeaways from this strategy, from my perspective, include a likely increase in regulation for critical infrastructure sectors that don't already have it, a willingness to regulate the electrical distribution space. So, this is things like the power grid and utility providers, which is always a good thing, and operational technology getting the attention it deserves, finally. So, the thing I want to call out in particular about this that I think is really interesting is the impact to software companies. Now, we've mentioned many times in the show before, and you've probably heard this phrase in the industry, is that every company these days is a software company. So, any new regulation that may force companies to perhaps create, I don't know, more secure code, perhaps, is going to be very challenging. So, just like how PCI was supposed to help stop credit card breaches, well, guess what? Credit card breaches have not stopped. And I realized too that PCI was not a government regulation. This was an industry regulation kind of imposed by the credit card companies on other companies. If you want to take credit cards, you have to be PCI compliant. So, I think it's interesting that the government is now wanting to kind of get into this game. And anytime the government wants to regulate anything, it's really going to do two things. And number one, it's going to take forever, right? I mean, the government moves as slow as a dinosaur, slow as molasses. It's going to take them forever to even implement anything, let alone agree on what these types of regulations are going to be. And so that second point is going to be that it's going to be very difficult to enforce, especially in this current political climate. So we have a very divided Congress. We've got Republicans that want to do their own thing, Democrats that want to do their other. And let's be honest, I don't think a whole lot is going to get done in the remaining time that Biden has in office. The other thing I want to call out that's really interesting is that it's almost refreshing to see that the US government is finally saying that companies and critical infrastructure in particular need to take the cyber threat from Russia and China more seriously. So, previous administrations, they've kind of danced around this topic, not really even saying the words Russia or China. And when they do, it's very watered down. So, it's finally good to see that they're actually calling it out and actually saying that Russia and China are actually a threat to the nation's cybersecurity. So this is actually a good thing to see. And I'm glad they're being more transparent about what's really going on with these two countries in particular.
Employee awareness of cybersecurity threats is critical to your organization, but most employees are bored by traditional security awareness training. The vast majority of employees are much more engaged when training is gamified. ClickArmor is the first fully gamified security awareness platform that reduces employee vulnerability by 60%. These days, we can't avoid cyber threats. They're everywhere, and everyone is a target. Employees really need to get better at avoiding cyber threats like phishing and social engineering. Most security awareness training solutions aren't effective enough to really change behavior. ClickArmor uses a very different approach that employees love. We use proven gamification techniques with psychological drivers that keep employees motivated to learn and improve their skills. Rather than using controversial live phishing tests that anger many employees and provide unreliable metrics, ClickArmor's unique learning challenges help employees learn about cybersecurity in a fun, stress-free way that builds up their confidence. And our engaging simulated threat scenarios motivate employees to improve their skills in a safe and fun environment. Gamified simulators can also extend far beyond phishing scenarios to practice facing dangerous social engineering scams. Our weekly 3-minute challenges provide continuous reinforcement for employees. Motivating employees to participate willingly means higher assurance reporting for compliance and risk management. Simple integration with your employee directory means that deployment of ClickArmor is a snap, and single sign-on makes usage and ongoing management of ClickArmor easy. ClickArmor has been proven to provide better employee engagement, making IT managers' lives easier. If you're tired of ineffective awareness training that hurts your corporate culture, find out how to gamify your security awareness training experience to improve employee resilience with ClickArmor.
So our second story of the week. So there's this app called BetterHelp, which is a direct-to-consumer mental health platform owned by a company called Teladoc Health Incorporated. Well, they have been asked to pay $7.8 million by the Federal Trade Commission for allegedly passing on users' mental health information to Facebook, Snapchat, and others. Yikes. So BetterHelp kind of came about around the COVID-19 pandemic when they essentially shut down all the in-person therapy that people were going to and moved all of this to online apps and such. So they've been making a ton of money, obviously, since the pandemic. And how they did this, apparently, with the data issue is that they had users complete a questionnaire, and then that information was somehow harvested and used to send to Facebook and other social media companies in these third-party agreements. Of course, BetterHelp has denied any wrongdoing and claimed it used industry standard practice, whatever that means. So this $7.8 million payment is going to be used to provide partial refunds to people who signed up and paid for these services between August of 2017 and December 31st, 2020. So I've got a couple thoughts on this situation. First of all, and we've mentioned this, I think, a few times in recent episodes, because there's been other issues with some of these apps. Stop using these mental health apps and instead go see a therapist in person. I think your data is much better protected through a doctor's office or a psychologist's office or a therapy office just by its nature, right? These companies like BetterHelp are finding ways around not necessarily laws, right? Because they're not actually having or storing HIPAA protected information, but they're selling and storing this information that provides demographic information or conditions that may not necessarily be protected by HIPAA. So be very careful using apps like these and very careful what you sign up for. So one of the things that I always recommend is reading the terms of service, reading the privacy policies, and look for specific areas where they're talking about how they may sell some of your information to third parties, if they say that at all. And this is one of those situations where the FTC caught this company trying to do some shady things. But I would suspect that a lot of these other therapy apps are doing many of the same things because ultimately these companies are businesses, right? They need to make money. And this is a way that they're doing that with your information. So the one thing I go back to is that you, as a consumer, have ultimate control of who you decide to share your data with. So whether that's a health app, whether that's your doctor or the doctors that you want to go to, you get to choose to do that. And ultimately it's up to you to choose correctly if you can, right? So you do have a choice whether you can use an app or you can go see a therapist in person. That is your personal choice. And I think it's just kind of weighing those risks, right? What's more risky than the other to you? And for you, it may not be a big deal if, say, BetterHelp is sending personal data or therapy information, things like that, to Facebook. You may be okay with that, but others may not. So again, get back to that kind of personal risk assessment of how you use your data or how companies are going to use your data by reading those privacy policies and terms of service. So, our last story of the week. Fast food chain Chick-fil-A has confirmed a credential stuffing attack that allowed cyber criminals to access over 71,000 customer accounts between December 2022 and February of 2023. And this breach has led to account or rewards balances being used and personal information being accessed. So what ended up happening was attackers basically took credentials and credential stuffing, where they take common passwords against a list of usernames, and then the ones that are accessed, they will validate that they can access those accounts, and they've been selling those most likely the dark web and hacker forums and things like that. And in particular, they're using the accounts that have the most, or they're selling the accounts that have the most reward points and then selling those off. So they're being sold for anywhere between $2 and $200, depending on those reward balances. So that's pretty interesting. It's the first time that I've seen a major fast food chain being, or their customers being attacked for their reward points. So, I just say some hackers really like their chicken sandwiches. And so this is kind of an interesting one where I kind of feel like is nothing sacred anymore. I mean, we're even going after Chick-fil-A over, getting personal data as well as rewards points so somebody can get more chicken sandwiches. And as a side note, I do want to bring up that we have talked about Chick-fil-A before on the show, and we had an interesting debate where co-host Scott Wright, who, as you know, is from Canada, he pronounces Chick-fil-A Chick-fil-A because he's Canadian. Well, folks, that is all for today's show. So I want to remind you, if you have not subscribed to our channel on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. That will help us reach the magical 1,000 subscribers, a true milestone that we would like to get this year on YouTube. So thank you so much for subscribing and, of course, supporting the podcast. Thank you all again for listening, and we will see you all again, hopefully with my other two co-hosts next week. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, hit that like and subscribe button. To catch all the latest from the show, visit our website, sharedsecurity.net. Follow us on Twitter at SharedSec, and join our Reddit community on the Shared Security Show subreddit.